back, Martin. This is the Big Fat American Rock Show. We are with one of the, I'm going to just make this prediction. He will be one of the biggest authors in many generations. The great Ben Levin joins us on the Big Fat American podcast. Now, Ben, what inspired you to become a writer?
First, before I get into that, your prediction made my day.
Oh, well, hey,
Thank
listen,
you.
just call it like I see it, Ben. It's gonna be, you're gonna change the world by your writing.
Okay, so here's what happened. I've been making up stories ever since I was little, and mostly they were copied off other stories. Like, I wrote tales like Beatrix Potter and stuff like that. Then, when I was 10, I made this Jewish version of Harry Potter, and my mom kept accidentally referring to it as a book, and I thought, why not turn it into a book? And then, just like that, I started writing.
Hmm. A Jewish version of Harry Potter. What would that? Can you give us a quick synopsis, a summary of what that character would be like? That's very interesting.
His name was Gabriel Garnett. He lived in Israel. I can't get this book published, by the way, because it's politically incorrect. Hopefully, it's not too unprofessional to mention that. And
No, we love politically incorrect around here. Go
yeah,
ahead.
but it still wouldn't be appropriate to publish.
Okay.
It's while he's in Hebrew school, Gabriel is fighting against an evil country called Rhinon, which is at war with Israel pretty much during all of the years he's preparing for his bar mitzvah.
Oh yeah, big time in a Jewish boy's life is the bar mitzvah. Lots of
Yeah.
fun too, by the way. Yeah. Okay, and then what happens?
There are 7 books in total. In book one, first, the Rhinans kidnapped the Jews or Israelites or Israel. I didn't really know the difference when I was 10 for slaves, and Gabriel somehow takes it upon himself, along with a couple of his friends, to rescue them.
Hmm.
Then in book two, and book three, and book four, he and his friends are constantly put under attack by the Rhinans, who kind of want to take them back again, but first need their blood for something. I don't really want to get into it.
It's fine.
He, and then book four, they finally succeed, and then they go back to kidnapping Jews for slaves again for the next two and a half books. In the 7th book, near the middle, they after kidnapping 100 slaves, they take over Israel and basically make the Jews segregated second class citizens with their lives at threat, and then eventually Gabriel is brought to heaven where he learns about Mahatma Gandhi, and this inspires him to non-violently defeat Rhinans with a singing battle. They're not allowed to sing Hebrew, and they sing Hebrew, and this leads them away, the Rhinans.
Wow, that is really a complex, interesting story. Maybe one day in the future you'll be able to expand upon that. So, how do you manage to get all of your writings with your family time and other activities? How do you find the extra time? Because we need tips here. People got to figure out that. I figured the great Ben Levin would be able to inspire us and give us some clues on how to fit it all in together.
Two things. Up until 8th grade, I went to a school that didn't give a lot of homework, so that's why I didn't struggle to find time. And the second thing is, most of the stories aren't very developed. A few are, but most are just skeletons of stories that I still have to meet up.
Well, that sounds interesting. So what you do is you'll just take story ideas and then you'll put them somewhere. You write them down, maybe in a journal,
Hmm.
and you save them for later. Is that the process?
Yeah, though, for the record, not every book I wrote was inspired by another book or movie. Some were inspired by life, others by God knows what.
Your book that's coming out in June, what is that inspired by? Tell us a little bit about that.
In the Hole was also inspired by a religious school event. I was at Temple in eighth grade, and they showed me, and well, they showed our class a video about homelessness in Florida. And after seeing it, I felt like I want to help the homeless.
That's a beautiful thing to do. Do you think that people really don't understand what it's like to be a homeless person, especially if they have a home, or do you think that homeless people are misjudged unfairly? What's your whole take on that? How we view
Hmm.
homelessness and what it must be like?
Unfortunately, I really don't really know the answer myself. I'm
Hmm.
still figuring out what it means to be homeless and to understand. In the Whole, when I first wrote it, was more something to study for English with. Put in a lot of vocabulary words I had to take out. So, and I didn't expect it to gain its momentum, so I didn't really do a lot of research. But I've started to interview homeless people or people who work with the homeless in shelters during these past couple of months. So I'm still learning and having revelations about what it means to be homeless. And no, I don't think any of us, especially not people who are middle class or rich, can really understand what it's like to be homeless. Not unless they've actually lived it.
Why do you write, Ben?
I write because it's fun, because I love coming up with stories, and it feels like a natural talent, and I feel like it's what I was born to do. Like
Hmm.
if I know this is probably extreme, but I think that if I didn't write, then my life would be a mistake.
Well, yeah, I guess that's your God-given talent, and you're expressing yourself that way. What's your greatest hope uh, as being a writer? What do you your biggest vision? I guess you might say.
My wish as a writer is to bring joy to children and maybe even
Oh,
adults through my stories. And my wish is to have a bunch of best selling novels, maybe become rich and famous. Actually, I kind of want that, but I don't want to get ahead of myself or become shallow. And I'd also kind of like to teach creative writing so I can inspire the next generation of writers.
I don't think you'll have any problems with getting a big head if you become rich and famous because you're already aware of that's something that you don't want to become. Um, now, I've talked to your mom and Susan, and we talked about autism. And I would like to know if you care to share how autism has impacted your writing and your life.
Hmm. Well, in one of my stories, Hardworking Hopeful, the main character, Liam, has a friend who is autistic named Alaric. He's not that well developed, though, and for a long time, I was ashamed of my autism, and actually, I'm sorry if this gets too personal, but I, because I used to think I could recover and that I had recovered, and after talking with someone and realizing that most of the world didn't agree, I was afraid to mention it for 3.5 years up until recently when I came to terms with the fact that they were right and I am still autistic. Right now, I'm kind of learning how to embrace it, and I think once I'm better at embracing it, maybe I'll include a lot more characters who are on the spectrum.
I like that line of thinking. I will say this that um, there's nothing weird or wrong with being autistic. It's just, just who some of us are.
I
And
know.
yeah, don't let people like label you and say you can or cannot do things based on what might be a diagnosis or based on the color of your skin or your gender, whether you're male or female, or whether, all of those different things that we see all the time. None of us, no matter how old or young we are, should allow the opinions of others to affect us in a negative way. And I think, Ben, you're on the right course. You know what we need, Ben, more than anything else in the whole wide world right now? We need the next Mr. Rogers, right? We need somebody who could teach people and, be, not talk down to somebody, but get on the level of somebody and reach them. And you do that via your writing. What are some of your favorite hobbies that you like to do besides writing?
I love taking walks and talking to friends. I haven't watched in a long time, so I'm not sure this counts, but I do enjoy watching sports too.
Oh, all right. What's your
And
favorite
I
sports?
for a long time my my top team was the Lakers, then but I don't think I was committed enough to be a real fan. I didn't really memorize facts about them, and last year I
Yeah.
barely watched their games.
Uh-huh.
The the Yankees, while I'm still learning about them too, they're my favorite baseball team because I love what Derek Jeter stands for. He's written all these books about following your dreams and about the power of them, and he's made himself a role model for how dreams really can come true. I want to be that too because my dream came true. And with that, he's one of my biggest inspirations.
Well, maybe one day you'll meet the great Derek Jeter. I see this in the future. The great Derek Jeter meeting the great Ben Levin, world famous author and novelist. Throw a novelist in there.
Oh my god. Your predictions are almost too much. They mean so much to me.
Well, listen, you mean a lot to me as well, Ben, and this little interaction we've had. I like you automatically. Um, there's I want to share an observation with you that I've had, and I'd like to get your perspective on this. I've noticed, especially on Facebook, social media, and just years of observation. I notice that when somebody has special needs or Down syndrome or perhaps autism or cerebral palsy, whatever it is, that you know, I just wonder how hard it is to make good friends. I mean, real friends that are with you through thick and thin, and real friends that just like you, who you are, the way you are, not wanting to change you, and willing to share life with you. Um, what's your take on establishing friendships? Is it easy? Is it difficult? Do you have some true friends? Do you think that sometimes people are kind of phony about the friendship? I'd really like your point of view on that.
It could be really difficult at times, especially since for many autistic kids, I know this is true about me. Sometimes I see, sometimes I make friendships bigger than they are in my mind, and the
Oh,
littlest thing, even if it's really just an acquaintance, can make me consider them a friend. I know this is true for me. I'm not going to speak for anyone else's experience, but when something goes wrong in a friendship or when you feel less than or when a friendship feels uncomfortable, I feel it really strongly.
yeah. You know why? Because you have a heart of compassion and love. That's why. And I don't know about you, but if someone tells me they're my friend, or if someone says that they got my back, or they bring this whole idea of loyalty, it's what I expect. So I treat people like I want to be treated, and when somebody doesn't do that, I feel I feel a little bit betrayed. And it's one of those things I can't, for me as a person, whether you anybody would consider me normal or not, I'm all about loyalty. I mean, loyalty is the biggest thing for me. You gotta be loyal, right? I mean, especially when you tell somebody you love them, or when you are their friend, or when you say you're going to do something, you got to do it. So loyalty is always a big part for me. What
It's
about for you?
Loyalty is important to me too, and while I probably am not perfect, I try to be. It's also really important that people on the spectrum try and make other friends who are on the spectrum, friends who can understand them, friends who can help them, friends who they can get through hardship with together.
Yeah, and understand each other without having to say anything. That's a good thing, right? I think the doggy agrees.
Yeah, my dogs are can be pretty loud at times, especially when there's a car nearby or an animal.
Right. Well, you know what the good thing about dogs are? They're loyal. That's why you have to have dogs. Uh,
Absolutely a fact.
what kind of training did you have in writing?
I took a writing class at Writopia Lab for th- 3.5 years, I think, from the spring of fifth grade up until like the end of the year in ninth, like December.
Uh-huh.
And I've also worked with an editor, two editors actually, and I took a writing seminar last summer for 2 weeks. Writopia.
Okay. And that now your mom, she works with you, right? Your mom has got an amazing background. She's a writer herself, I think, and understands English, right? So what was it like working with your mom?
It's fun.
Uh,
She understands stories in a very similar way to what I do, so we tend to work together well. Sometimes if there's an idea which mom knows probably doesn't work or I think really can or something like that, it can be a little intense arguing with her, but it's part of the process.
well, yeah, you know something. I would imagine you know the Beatles, right? You're a big fan of the Beatles?
Absolutely.
Okay. I am sure that John Lennon and Paul McCartney had those kind of feuds all the time. Well, I don't agree with you, Paul. I do agree with you,
I
John.
know.
Like
In fact, biographies, and when I was reading about the Beatles, I read that after they broke up, John and Paul weren't willing to be friends again for years. They even insulted each other in public until I think it was one night they made up in John's apartment and watched TV together.
Oh, that's nice. Yeah. I mean, they grew up as young lads together, and there's something that unites those kind of guys. And I'll tell you a little history about myself. I had the honor and privilege of interviewing Paul McCartney, Ringo Starr, when he had his Ringo Rama album out,
I am
and
so jealous.
I had nothing to be jealous about. You listen, they'd all be jealous if I was talking to you. Believe me. I even, Ben, was able to go into the Dakota where John Lennon lived and interview Yoko.
You're
And I was
kidding.
no, but I was so nervous. I was so nervous that I forgot to turn the tape recorder on. So then when I
Oh,
realized that we were going into the interview, I had to do some quick thinking. I'm like, I can't let her know that I'm that dumb that I didn't turn on the recording. So I pretended like the batteries went dead or something like that. I also too, Ben, this is really funny. I got up into the apartment, and you've ever seen the movie Tommy Boy, Chris Farley?
no.
Right? You got to watch this very funny movie. I kept worrying about, or your mom probably remembers John Candy. I kind of klutzy. I'm a kind of a klutz. I kept worrying that I was going to break an expensive piece of furniture in John Lennon's apartment. That was
Oh,
like
wow.
I
I
started to
probably would
scream.
have had a nervous breakdown.
Yeah, yeah. I was that close to the nervous breakdown. Couldn't believe where I was. Um, what are your plans this summer?
My plans this summer are probably to work as a camp as well as to go to another writing seminar.
Wow. All right. What kind of camp are you going to work at?
It's called the Nature Place Day Camp. It's nearby, and I've been going since I was pretty young, like 10, my first year there was shortly before I became a writer,
Hmm.
and and my plan, if I get in, is to teach creative writing
Well, that's
as an
amazing.
activity.
That's really cool. Can you give me some creative writing tips? Because when I try to write, Ben, I have such a hard time. I think that each one of us probably has a book inside of us, right? That we can write and sort of make it interesting. Um,
Their own story.
your own story. So, just if somebody's watching or listening right now, can you give us like a couple of quick tips of how you can be creative in writing? It doesn't have to be really anything complex. Just like what is Ben Levin's tricks of the trade, so to speak?
My personal tips are read a lot of books, watch a lot of TV or see a lot of movies, and
Hmm.
pay attention to life.
Oh, good.
Sometimes I've dreamt running my own creative writing camp, and my vision was on the first day of every week, I'd take the kids either to the library or to the movies so they can get writing inspiration. I'd also recommend, while I don't personally do this, going online for prompts. That might help get you motivated.
I like that idea. Now, the camp that you go to, is it connected to a nature center?
I don't think so, but
Yeah.
I don't know for sure.
All right. Because the reason why I asked this, here's something about me that I'd like to share. I love owls, hawks, various types of birds. I like to look at the deer outside. When I was 20 years ago, there was no deer in the neighborhood where I live. Now I got a whole herd out back, and they look at me through the window like, "Hey, man, are you going to feed us or what?" And they just stare at me. But I love animals. I love the little rabbit that lives underneath my car. She decided to camp out underneath my car. I haven't moved the car in weeks because the little rabbit's there. But I just really enjoy nature and just like observing those animals, and I think that they can be inspirational. So, do you have any sort of favorite animals? Like, all right, here, let's do this. If you were an animal, what kind of animal would you like to be?
First, dogs, and second, to answer your question after hearing this, while I don't know for sure we're connected to Nature Center, we do a lot with animals. There's Outrageous Pets where they show us different cuddly creatures, even
Yeah.
snakes sometimes. And there's also this guy who's named Bill who shows us wild birds like hawks,
Oh
owls, and
man.
eagles. You'd
Yeah.
love Bill.
Oh yeah, for sure, man. That definitely. There's a nature center in Wyckoff, and there's an owl that's always during the winter they put the owl away. But I mean, this thing is huge. This owl. I got to go visit that owl. It's where I find some inner peace. And then I look at the peacocks, and I like monkeys and I love raccoons. Raccoons are my favorite. They're just so cute with their little hands and stuff like that. So just a little bit about me. You thought I was going to tell you some great stories about the Beatles. We did one, but nobody would ever suspect in a million years that I would ever talk about my favorite animals. So you got that out of me, Ben. That must make you feel good, right?
Mhm.
Yeah, it's good. Now, how can we find out more about your new book coming out? What's the title of it? And of course, there's bentheauthor.com that you can see on the banner below on what we call a ticker in the trade. Um, how can people get a hold of the book? I mean, give us some more information about giveaways and all that kind of stuff.
The pre-order is going to probably come like a week or two before the book is published on Amazon.com. I don't know for sure what other ways the book is going to be published, but the book is going out on June 22nd. Also, this is my I will acknowledge that my mom just reminded me of this, but the night that In the Hole is published, we're going to have a shelter suit sleep out. Shelter Suit is this company which makes suits slash sleeping bags for the homeless. And one plan we have is that on the night of the launch, people can sleep outside in shelter suits, except in order to participate in the event, they have to pay a certain amount of money to give to Shelter Suit.
That's a beautiful thing, Ben. I like that idea a lot. All right. Well, I do appreciate your time, and
Thanks
I
for
look
having
for
me.
you're very welcome. I look forward to speaking to you down the road when you come out with your next book or novel, or maybe you'll write a movie one day and then you'll ask me to star in it. That'd be great. Because you have to have a radio personality that's part of the plot. Maybe one day you can write a book about radio. Ooh, that's a great idea. The magical speaker. Like
Mhm.
that. You can use that. You can have the magical speaker. All right. Well, thank you very much for being part of the Big American podcast. We're going to take a quick break. And coming up, the world famous radio host, Sophie Martin, is going to interview the world famous author, Ben Levin, on the Big Fat American Radio Network.
It is the Sophie Martin Show on NEWHD, here with one of the most famous authors in possibly the world, Ben Levin. And now he's got a couple of good books. So, what inspired you to become a writer, and how does being autistic impact it all?
My brother once told me that every autistic kid has a superpower and that mine is my writing. I think autism is what gave me my creative writing abilities and what helped me become a writer.
Where do your stories come from?
Books, movies, TV shows, and life.
How do you manage to kit in all of your writing with other activities such as schoolwork, family time, and so on?
Well, honestly, when I first started writing for the first 4 years after I became a writer, I actually went to a school where I didn't get a lot of homework. And then after I transferred, it was harder to make time, but I manage. And the truth is, most of my stories are kind of skeletonish and still have a lot of developing they need to do before they're published. They need to get the meat on. So that's one thing I need to do. I need to do lots and lots of editing between finishing the first draft and writing the story to prepare for publication.
Why do you write, and what's your greatest hopes as a writer?
I write because writing is fun and because I enjoy coming up with stories, and I feel like I was given my gift to make up stories so I could share them. And my greatest hope as a writer is to bring happiness through my books to people all over the world, especially children.
Do you have any favorite hobbies other than writing?
I love walking, spending time with friends, reading, and I said this earlier, but I'm not sure it counts since I haven't done it in a while, but I like to watch sports.
How does music impact your life, and do you have a specific band or artist that you like to listen to?
My favorite band is the Beatles. I play their music literally all the time, and I love them so much that sometimes I even listen to Gregorian chant covers of their music, something my whole family teases me for. And music is a way of getting hope and having, and it impacts my emotions.
Are you into sports? And if so, what are some of your favorites?
I used to play soccer and basketball when I was younger. I love running track, and sports are actually one of my favorite things to write about. In fact, the fall before last, I managed my school soccer team so I could get better at writing soccer stories.
What have you learned about homelessness in your process of writing in the whole?
I've learned a lot of things, like the dynamics with how with the statistics of how many people of color and LGBTQ people are in the community, which is something which I'm actually trying to figure out how to make more of a major theme. And I've learned about how major the use of alcohol is, how much it affects the homeless, and I've learned more about what people can do to help them.
What training have you received in your writing?
I went to a writer's lab for 3.5 years, from the spring of fifth grade to the winter of ninth. I took a writing seminar for a couple weeks last year, and I've worked with an editor.
And before we wrap up our show, we got one more bonus question just for you, and it is a good one. What are you going to do this summer aside from publishing your new novel?
I'm going to keep writing. I'm going to hopefully go to another seminar, and I might go to camp and teach creative writing.
It was so nice meeting you, Ben. It was a great interview, and I really hope to do another one you get soon. And your
Thank.
books are going to inspire so many people.
What's your favorite Beatles song?
See, this is a really difficult one to answer because they're so great. But the first ones that come to mind is In My Life. There are places I remember.
Remember.
Right. And the reason why I like that song so much, well, it evokes a lot of emotion. It can make you cry, right? It can make you happy. But the thing that I really find amazing about that song was when it was written, it's written by young men in their young 20s, as if they were 60 years old. So that always really, it just always made me think about how much talent these guys had right from the start. And then I have other songs that I truly love to listen to. While My Guitar Gently Weeps from the White Album with George Harrison. It just always takes me away to a better place. Then you have Golden Slumbers Medley, and the cover of that by Jennifer Hudson, I think her name is. I don't know. It was one cartoon I saw. That always brings me to tears. So things bring me to tears sometimes, Ben. That's how you know it's a good song. Either it makes you really happy or it can bring you to tears. So I have to give you a kind of like a big three answer. So again, my In My Life, While My Guitar Gently Weeps, and Golden Slumbers Medley.
When you interviewed Paul and Ringo, what were some of the things you asked them?
Um, I don't remember. See, when I interviewed Paul McCartney, it was with my good friend Scott Meany. If you look him up, you'll see him as prominent in the history of the Beatles here in the United States, especially when they came to New York in 1964 and played on the Ed Sullivan Show. So when I was interviewing Paul McCartney, it was about his Wingspan CD, and I pretty much kept to some of the songs, some of the background information, some of the songs that were on it, to have Paul talk a little bit about that. And then there was the elevator conversation that we had going down with Paul when I asked him why he was getting married again. And we'll just keep that between the gentlemen that were on the elevator because I thought,
I
yeah,
understand.
okay. Ringo Starr, he was totally awesome. He had me come up to the hotel at the Beatles. I think the Plaza. I'm pretty sure. And when the Beatles came the first time, they stayed at the same hotel. So Ringo had me back, and this was over Ringo Rama. And the one thing I wanted to do was spend a lot of time on his album because a lot of disc jockeys or people that interview guys that are in the group like the Beatles will always ask him about the stuff that happened 40, 50 years ago when they first got their start. Maybe when they were recording at Abbey Road Studios, all of those different things, or the last rooftop concert. I wanted to focus specifically on his album. So I invested my time to go through each and every track And I noticed that he used an instrument called the mellotron. A mellotron is much like today's keyboards, in which you can make all of these different sound effects. But back in the day, they didn't have the electronics to do it. So they used this mellotron, and it was like a loop tape, and they would add all of these different weirdo sounds that you would hear in the song. And I was just amazed that he was able to find one that was in working condition. So we focused on that. Also, his wife, Barbara, was featured on one of the songs on the album. And I kept asking questions about that album. Well, Ringo was so happy that I focused on that, that he was willing to sign drum heads for me, which he usually would not do the autographs. And then I was followed up the interview by asking him, what was it like coming over to the United States in the very first time as you board that airliner in Heathrow and you head to Idlewild, JFK Airport? What was going through your mind? He goes, um, something to the effect, I was flying high at 35,000 feet. I mean, they were so excited to come to the United States for the very first time. I was excited at 35,000 feet or whatever it was he said. And I thought, all right, cool. That's all I need to know. Thank you, Ringo. Um, and Yoko, I would always go with my friend Scott. We go up to the Dakotas, and I would ask her questions about history with John Lennon. And I was always respectful. I wouldn't ask those obvious questions, those hurtful questions. I just wanted to know how life for her was going, and if she had anything that she wanted to share with everybody else. And it was usually never really a long conversation, not like an hour or so, but maybe 30 minutes because she's busy. And I do feel that in many ways people blamed her for the breaking up of the Beatles, but she had nothing to do with it. I really think that that's the wrong person to blame in the history of the Beatles. So those were my moments with the Beatles, and I do a lot of work with the John Lennon Educational Tour Bus and Songwriting Contest to this day. I'm one of the judges, and one of the, I guess, one of the proudest moments of my life is when we're having an event, and I was introduced as if I was a family member of John Lennon. It was
Oh,
like he's like
wow.
family. So that was blew my mind ever since then. I just it's like just an amazing memory to have.
Which is a mellotron closer to, a keyboard or a piano?
Keyboard.
Okay.
Because the keyboard, if you get like a Casio, you now do all of those electronic adjustments where you can make it sound like bagpipes if you want, or you could generate various type of sound effects with the keyboard. Piano, you can't do that. But the piano, I think, is one of the most amazing instruments to learn. It's kind of difficult for me. I believe it or not, as much as I know about music, I really don't play any instruments. I'm more on the engineering side. So if I was recording a band, I'm really good at that. I'm really good at making radio edits, and I can hear a hit record. And there's pretty much a formula, Ben. Quick intro time, get to the refrain really fast. It's got to have that hook, and it can't go on and on. Usually about 3 minutes, 45 seconds is what you're looking for. Beatles always had that same formula where it would be maybe as little as a cold intro, like they start singing right away, or 3 to 5 seconds, and then they would get to the refrain pretty fast to get to the hook, and the song might last about 2 minutes and 25 seconds tops. But they also rewrote the book in that when they would release certain songs, such as "Hey Jude," that was around 7 minutes, and radio back then they would look at that like, we're not playing this, it's too long. But we're the Beatles, man, we could do this kind of stuff, we'll write the book, and get played on the air and become an amazing hit.
Sorry, I had a.
That's
Oh,
okay.
yeah.
Go ahead.
You've met Yoko, you've met Paul McCartney, and you've met Ringo Starr. Have you ever met anyone in George Harrison's family?
No, I have not. But I'll tell you, one of these days, I wish I can talk to Danny because he looks spitting image of his dad. I mean, he looks just like him. And you might have seen the films where they will do the shows While My Guitar Gently Weeps, so Paul will be at the piano. And you might have various other guitar players, including Jeff Lynne, Eric Clapton. Eric Clapton's part of that story because he played the original recording on While My Guitar Gently Weeps with George in the studio. He felt like he was out of place, like he didn't fit in, but he actually did. So never talked to anybody in George. Oh, wait. Yes, I have. His sister. I was
You're
friends with George
kidding.
Harrison's sister, Louise Harrison, and she looked like George, except well, they both had long hair. She looked just like George. Now, Louise, she was a nurse. She ended up becoming a nurse. And when the Beatles came over here, George had a bit of a sore throat, and she took care of him while they were doing their various shows here in the United States. She ended up moving to Indiana, I think. So there you go. You reminded me about Louise. So yes, I have talked to every, I guess you might say, connected to every member of the Beatles. Ah, great question. Not too many people know that I know Louise.
That is so cool and something I'm so jealous of.
Well, you don't have to be jealous because now that you know me, you're tied directly to the Beatles, right? Isn't that cool? What are some of
Sounds
the other what
amazing.
are some of the other bands that you like that I might have interacted with?
Other than sometimes watching Glee, I don't really listen to other bands. So, yeah.
Well, my favorite band besides the Beatles is Led Zeppelin. And I actually did get to interview Robert Plant, Jimmy Page, and John Paul Jones, who plays bass. John Bonham, the drummer, he passed away in 1980, 79, 1980. So I never got to interview him, but I think I might have interviewed his son, Jason, along. Yeah, I'm pretty sure. Jason's his son and looks just like Bonzo behind the kit. I suggest, if you get some extra time over the summer, invest in Led Zeppelin 1. Good album to start with and get the idea of the whole Led Zeppelin thing. What they would do is take these blues stories, these blues songs, I'm sorry, from American blues artists like Howlin' Wolf and Willie Dixon and Robert Johnson, and they would make it into their own. That's what they would do. So I'll just leave it at that. It's a little bit of a discovery.
Do you have any pets?
No, I don't have any pets because everybody in the house is allergic to the pets. But I did I did have a couple of dogs growing up. My favorite pet of all time was this little tiny cat named Ralphie, and I named her Ralph. I don't know why. Ralph number two. There were two Ralphs. Ralphie, and she was a what they call I don't know if this is politically correct, but this is what I was told that they were called a dwarf cat. She was just tiny, that she would never grow any bigger. She was this cutest little thing. And you know, she was my favorite of all time. Little Ralphie. Um yeah, I mean, I had a couple of dogs. Which my favorite dog probably is the Labrador Retriever. I just like labs. I like big dogs. I like big goofy dogs. They make me happy. Here's the things that make me happy during the day: dogs and babies. I like babies. Babies always make me smile. I like when they become curious about stuff and their eyes light up, and there's no hidden agenda with little babies. So babies, even baby animals are cute, right? Baby elephants, is there anything better than a baby elephant? So when I'm not feeling so good about things in life, I'll just maybe get on hope. Yeah, can't really go on Facebook to feel better anymore. I'll probably just find some pictures of baby elephants and stuff like that. That would be a cool pet, Ben. Can you imagine what the neighbors would do if I had a pet elephant?
No. Did did you visit zoos a lot when you were growing up?
Um, Not too much when I was growing up, but I would always take my daughter Sophie to talk to the Bronx Zoo. Love the Bronx Zoo. There is a zoo over here, Van Son Park. It's a local zoo in Bergen County, in Paramus. I like going to that. They have nice animals. I have some sort of deal with this mountain lion at Van Son Park where she or he will talk to me. And this very strange. won't do it with anybody else. I show up and this, I'm not kidding you. It starts to do like that kind of noises. It only does it to maybe it wants to kill me. I don't know. Maybe it wants to eat me for lunch, dinner, or breakfast, lunch, and dinner. But this one mountain lion, we have this relationship. Can't explain it. Um, but my favorite animals are obviously the owl. I'm intrigued by the owls. I just think they're adorable, and raccoons. Besides that, when I was little, we used to go to Great Adventure, and I loved the safari. Oh, the safari is great, where you see the wild animals, and then in Disney World, you can go to what's the wild Animal Kingdom? Yeah,
Yeah,
Animal Kingdom, and you can go on a safari ride and see all of these animals up close, like the giraffes and the wildebeest and the lions and the tigers and um, I don't know if they have any leopards, but yeah, I mean, just ostriches. Love ostriches. Funny looking. I like going to aquariums, and I love the seals, baby seals, otters. They're cute, and I like penguins. Penguins are just hilarious to me. I mean, they're just like a walking comedy of nature.
Have you ever been to Florida? I'll explain why I'm asking after you.
Okay, yeah, I've been to Florida. I would say that since Sophie was 5 years old, up until COVID-19 last year, we have gone to Disney every year in the span of that would be 14 years. Yes. And sometimes we go twice a year to Florida. I have relatives down in Florida, and we also go to Disneyland. I like going to Los Angeles every once in a while, and Europe too. I like going to Europe. But why? Why? What do you like about Florida?
For about 6 years from when I actually five, because we missed it when I was 15, when I was ages 11, 12, 13, 14, and 16, I typically visit my grandmother in West Palm Beach, and we go
Oh,
to this amusement park slash zoo called Lion Country Safari, where we could go on roller coasters, actually go on a safari by driving through this animal kingdom, and then we could go on roller coasters and other rides, and there were a bunch of other animals there too. It's a great place, and I have a feeling you'd love it.
oh, I bet you I would. Now, here's the one thing that I will tell anybody watching or listening: when you go on a safari and you're using your car, avoid the monkeys. The monkeys will tear your car apart. They will take the window wiper and they think it's like some sort of licorice and they start eating the stuff. So, anybody listening, public service announcement: when you go on a safari with your car, unless it's a rental, avoid the monkeys because they'll wreck the car. And you know what I found fascinating about the animals? The hippos. You don't want to mess with a hippo. Apparently, they're just you know tough animals. Hippos, you don't want to mess with the hippos. I found out about it. They look docile. They look like they wouldn't kill you, but definitely avoid the hippos at all costs. You don't want to get up close to a hippo, and you don't want a moose to charge you, and you don't want to get too close to a bear. Now, I've seen bears in the wild. They're fascinating creatures. They look all cute and cuddly, but you just don't want to go up and start hugging them. Went to Alaska and just watched the bears eating the salmon. That was a treat. They really are cute. Time to wrap it up.
No, just something random. I
Okay.
have another question. What
Okay.
books do you like to read? And please do not mention any of mine because I personally think that would be cheaty.
Okay. Other than the great Ben Levin books, um, you know, I spend most of my time, Ben, reading holy books and Bibles and theology because I'm also a Russian Orthodox priest. So I like discovering these ancient writings and what we call lives of the saints, because I think that you can draw inspiration about people before you that really can add some, quality to your life and give you a point of view that is You know, I think, Ben, if you ask me my biggest goal, I would like to be a holy person. Just like, help people, um, teach people how to love one another, love thy neighbor, be good, help other people that are in need. That's my main goal. All the other stuff, it really doesn't matter, but that's the biggest thing to me. Other than the great Ben Levin and these holy books and about the saints, let's see what's a good book that I like to it's always a hit or miss with books with me. I just I don't can't remember the last novel that I read. Um, yeah, if you looked at a picture of all my books here, it would probably not be interesting to most people. That's a great question. I do enjoy, believe it or not, this is crazy, the dictionary, right? And when I was little, I was fascinated by what we called encyclopedias. And I just would take the encyclopedia because it got to the point really fast, and I would look up all kinds of interesting things. I had a fascination with battleships. I had a fascination with Yogi Berra, so I read everything about Yogi, and then I moved over to Johnny Bench because he was another catcher. I've read books by various uh, athletes and whatnot, and I like those coaching books. Like I don't know, successful tips or whatever they are, little things there. And I love reading the Harvard Business Review. So there's one. It's a magazine, and then of course all the various. Now you're making me think about what I do read. So I'll read Billboard. There's a magazine called Classic Rock out of the UK. I like things out of England. I like history books. Um, I've read stuff about the Beatles, of course. There's a great writer, Ticket to Ride by Denny Somack is a good book. Denny is the Beatles historian. I've worked with him many times. And I mean, he could tell you all kinds of stories about the Beatles and Abbey Road Studios and that kind of stuff. So those are the kind of books that I would gravitate towards. And then um, on occasion, I have to read those business books. Got to read those business books and how to be a good business person, marketing and all that boring stuff. I know I also like chemistry. Not too many people know that, but I got 100 on a national chemistry test. I also like biology. I like physics. I like reading about space. I'm really into science, Ben. I like science a lot. Yeah.